Welcome to the channel for the future caretakers of resurrected species. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keeper Association.
Oh, hello there. Welcome to the Paleo-Zoo-Keeper Association. My name is Austin. As a Paleo-Zoo-Keeper, you'll be able to take care of so many different animals that have ever lived and was given a second chance. With any extinct animal, there's always going to be challenges, especially when you face some of the strangest animals around that we have never taken care of before. One such animal, in this case, would be the Moropus, a member of the Chalicotheres. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you have never even heard of Chalicotheres. Well, let's give you a little short review of them before knowing how to take care of the Moropus Foals, or infants at least. Chalicotheres are a group of hoofed animals that, as this illustrator would put it, resemble a gorilla horse with claws. They are part of the Perissodactyla group, which includes rhinos, horses, and tapirs. As mentioned, they have a head like very similar to that of a horse, with a gorilla-like body with longer forelimbs than the rear limbs, with long claws instead of hooves, especially in the front feet. There are two different groups of Chalicotheres. One of them is the Chalicotheriidae, which are forest-dwelling herbivores that walk on their knuckles to protect their long claws. The other group of Chalicotheres are the Chalicotherioidea. Unlike the members of the first Chalicothere group, which have short necks, long arms, and lived in forested areas, this group of Chalicotheres have longer necks, giving them a horse or giraffe-like appearance, with their limbs being similar proportion, and instead of walking on their knuckles, they walk flat on their feet and have the ability to be able to retract their claws, much like cats. And the Chalicotheres of this group are also known to live in more open areas and not in closed forests. This is the group of Chalicotheres that the subject species for this video, the Moropus, is from. A native to North America, the Moropus is amongst one of the largest species of Chalicotheres that has ever lived, weighing between 2,200 to 3,740 pounds and being 8 feet or 2.4 meters tall at the shoulder. When it comes to resurrecting Moropus, this is where things can get a little tricky. Because if we were to find DNA, it would not be a complete DNA, it would be more in fragments, since finding a full genome of the animal that lived that long ago would be impossible. And even if we were able to find enough DNA, we would need a living relative to be able to reconstruct the DNA of the Moropus using the animal's genome, mostly just by heavily modifying the living relative's genome with Moropus DNA. As mentioned earlier, Chalicotheres are part of the Perissodactyla families. This includes horses, tapirs, and rhinos. Using one of these different varieties of Perissodactyls that are alive today would be the most likely genome to be used to resurrect the Moropus. At one time, the Chalicotheres were said to be closely related to horses. Currently, they're said to be closely related to tapirs. Even this is still uncertain. It's possible that once we find the genetic material of Chalicotheres, we could be able to finally see which ones are the more closely related to. But for the time being, we will say that we will use the basal genome of a horse, or maybe even a tapir, to help resurrect the Moropus. The next challenge would be to provide a surrogate mother to be able to support the embryo. While we obviously do not have a modern-day Chalicotheres to use, we must use their modern living relatives. With the largest living species of tapir, the Malayan tapir in Southeast Asia, being over 5 times smaller than the Moropus, this would not be a suitable surrogate mother for the Chalicothere. horses would most likely be the best candidates to be the recips for the embryos and surrogate mothers for the foals. And if so, we would need to use large breeds of horses in order to be the surrogate mothers, such as Shire horses, Clydesdales, and Belgian drafts like this one here. This is most likely because that if Moropus is similar to horses, then it's possible that they will be able to give birth to offspring that are around 10% of their weight. And that means for an animal that weighs between 2,200 and 3,740 pounds, they will have a foal that would weigh between 220 and 374 pounds. That's well within the range, if not slightly a little over, than that of the largest horse foals. Although it would not be surprising if a cesarean or C-section surgery would need to be done for such a strange pregnancy. With taking care of the surrogate mare and the Moropus foal, we must provide a clean, dry, and safe environment for them both, monitor their health and behavior, and consult a veterinarian whenever any problems arise. Make certain that the newborn foal receives colostrum. This is the first milk that is produced by the mother within the first few hours after birth. It contains antibodies and nutrients that are essential for the foal's immune system and growth. Make sure fresh water and high-quality feed is available for the mother, and do any supplementations on grains or pellets if needed. You can introduce solid food to the new foal, gradually, mind you, starting within a few weeks after birth. You give only a small amount of hay and browse, and increase the quantity and variety as it grows. Avoid grains or pellets until the foal is at least around 6 years old or so, as this could cause digestive issues. Provide any mineral and vitamin supplements if the diet is deficient or imbalanced. Vaccinations and deworming of both the foal and the mother accordingly is definitely recommended. One thing you would probably need to watch out for is that while the horse has hooves, the Chalicothere has clawed toes, and there's always a chance that the mare might accidentally step on those toes, so keep a lookout for that. But there is always a chance that during the birth, the surrogate mare might have died from complications, or even if it hasn't died, it might reject the foal altogether. So one must consider this. When hand-rearing a Moropus foal, it is imperative that they do not get raised alone. It'll be best to raise them with another Moropus foal, but if that's not available, other hooped animals could definitely be used. Like, for example, in this illustration, there's a Quaha foal and the Yatta cow calf. This would help the Moropus foal be able to develop social skills needed for when they get older, especially for intact Moropus male foals. As you can see, those are just some of the basics on taking care of Moropus foals. Now, how about we go a little more in depth on nutrition and possible ailments that Moropus foals would face. In the case of Moropus foals being raised by their surrogate mares, it is imperative to make certain that they get their colostrum, as mentioned earlier, within hours after they are born. And after that, make certain that they are nursing every now and then throughout the day. If they don't show an interest in nursing, and definitely have not been nursing, this could be a sign that they would be sick. In the event of the surrogate mare dying after giving birth to the Moropus foal, either milking the colostrum out of the deceased mare's udder or providing artificial colostrum would definitely be needed. If they're anything like tapirs, it is most likely that the milk of the Moropus would be high in fat and low in lactose. Some examples of milk replacer formulas that have been used successfully on tapirs that could probably be used for Moropus will include Zoologic Milk Matrix 30/55, powdered milk replacer that contains 30% crude protein and 55% crude fat. There is also multi-milk, which contains 24% crude protein and 24% crude fat. There is also Esbilac, which contains 33% crude protein and 40% crude fat. All of these would need to be fed to the offspring at least about 4 to 6 times a day, with the amount fed to the foal being between 10 to 15% of the foal's body weight per day. On a quick side note, if you couldn't be able to get the colostrum from the surrogate mare, you could always use artificial colostrum to help out. Like horses, Moropus was a herbivore, and like tapirs, they appear to be browsers too. Judging from the analysis on their teeth, they definitely go for leaves, twigs, and even bark. When introducing solid food to the Moropus foal, best start a couple weeks after birth. And when you do, make sure it's done with high quality hay or browse. Keep the pellets and grain away from the foal, at least until it gets much older, for that would cause some stomach issues, but we'll get to that later. On a side note, if you do see the Moropus foals actually consuming horse manure or horse apples, don't be alarmed. This is actually normal behavior for a lot of monogastric or single stomach animals, such as horses and elephants. This is both an easy way to get some food, solid food, and also to introduce gut flora and bacteria so that they can be able to have them there to digest solids later on. When feeding the Moropus, you definitely use different feeds such as hay, especially alfalfa, several pellets and grains. Careful about those. Why we have to tell later on. And there's also browse. Thankfully, since the Moropus has died out pretty recently compared to the dinosaurs, we have a lot of the plants that they lived with today around us, and they're more or less readily available. However, just because they were found with the Moropus doesn't completely mean that they are good for the Moropus. It's like saying, since poison ivy and cows were found side by side, does that mean they're good for cows to eat, for example? So we're going to need to make certain that which one of the I'll provide a list of trees that were found with the Moropus and see which one, using a horse as a model, would perhaps be safe or toxic to the Moropus. When the Moropus was around, it was said to be in North America between 20.4 million to 13.6 million years ago. At this time, the climate was cooler and drier than the era before it, and the vegetation went from close forests to more open, drier forests, like grasslands, deserts, and open woodlands. Many of the trees that Moropus are found with include the list as you see here: oak, walnut, hickory, maple, birch, willow, alder, sumac, and dogwood. But like I said before, not all of these trees could be good browse for the Moropus. And using a horse as a model, we'll see which one would probably be good or bad for the Moropus. Oak is a group of deciduous or evergreen trees and shrubs that produce acorns and have lobed or toothed leaves. To horses, toxicity is uncommon, but it is possible, so this will need to be taken into consideration. Walnut is a group of deciduous trees that are known to produce edible nuts and have pinnate leaves. From the nuts to the leaves, black walnuts are toxic, unlike the other species of walnuts. Hickory is a group of deciduous trees that are similar to walnuts, and while their nuts are said to be toxic to horses, the leaves are said to be non-toxic, but always proceed with caution. Maple is a group of deciduous trees and shrubs that have opposite leaves, often with lobes, and produce winged seeds, and of course maple syrup. While their leaves are safe when they're fresh, the leaves become toxic when they're dry or wilted, so definitely keep this in mind. Birch are a group of deciduous trees and shrubs that have simple leaves, often with serrated margins, and produce catkins. They are said to be completely safe for horse consumption, so the same could be said for Moropus consumption. Willow are a group of deciduous trees and shrubs that have simple leaves as well, often with serrated margins, and produce catkins as well. We know them best from the whipping willows, and they are also said to be completely safe for horses, so most likely safe for Moropus as well. Alders are a group of deciduous trees and shrubs that also have simple leaves, often with serrated margins, and also produce catkins as well. And, like the other previous two, are said to be completely safe for horses as well. Sumac, I hope I said that right, is a group of deciduous or evergreen trees and shrubs that are known to have compound leaves, often with serrated leaflets, and produce clusters of red berries. While staghorn sumac is considered safe, white sumac is not. So definitely do your research on which sumac to use before ever giving it to the horse or Moropus. Dogwood is a group of deciduous or evergreen trees and shrubs that have simple leaves, often with veins that curve towards the tip, and often produce clusters of small flowers surrounded by snowy bracts. And they are also known to be safe for horses, which therefore could be safe for Moropus. When feeding the non-toxic trees as browse and hay to the Moropus foals, especially after they are weaned, and they'll be considered roughage, and it's best to feed these animals like we would with tapirs, 50% or more roughage in their diet. Concentrates such as grain and pellets are basically to 50% or less. Preferably less, but for reasons we'll get to later on. One other nutritional component that we'll definitely need to consider and watch out for is one that it's not exactly happened with horses per se, but it's actually happened with browsing rhinos and tapirs. And this will be iron storage disease. This is basically caused by a large accumulation of iron in their diet. Why these browsing animals have such sensitivity to iron levels, we don't know. But we do know that this is a possibility and has happened with browsing rhinos and tapirs in captivity. So it's most likely that this would happen to Moropus as well. This has happened with other animals such as non-human primates, fruit bats, and so forth, but this is definitely something to consider for Moropus. Speaking of diseases, there are definitely a good amount of ailments that Moropus foals would suffer from as they grow, and this is something to consider. One ailment would most likely occur if the Moropus foal was being raised by the surrogate mare. A week or two after foaling or giving birth, the surrogate mare will go back into heat. This is called foal heat, and this will affect the mare's milk, and this change will affect the foal by basically changing the flora and bacteria that runs in the foal's gut. This can cause the foal to have diarrhea or scours. While it is normal, it's best to keep an eye on it since foals are susceptible to many forms of infections, and it getting worse and being prolonged can be a sign of that. If the foal's anus becomes irritated by this, wash it with warm water and mild soap, and then apply a topical protectant such as petroleum jelly or zinc oxide to stop scalding. Probiotics or even yogurt can help with the gastrointestinal flora. Another ailment that Moropus foals will suffer from is colic. Now, I've actually described colic for Triceratops in another video, so a lot of this would be very familiar. Colic is a form of abdominal or stomach pain that is often found in horses, and even other species will show this too. Causes of colic would include sand ingestion, which is called sand colic. There is also a twisted gut or parasites stuffing up the intestines, and there's even gas colic, which of course as the name implies, that the intestinal tract is filled up with gas, which is caused by bacteria which ingested way too much grains and pellets, concentrates, which is why it's one of the reasons to make certain that it's only 25% or lower of the animal's diet consists of grains. Symptoms of colic are as follows. One symptom would include like a very dull, apathetic behavior and appearance, not interested in eating, and just not really interacting that much or being energetic. This can also be signs of other illnesses, but this is considered one symptom. One other symptom of colic is constantly getting on the ground and rolling around on their back. Now, this doesn't always mean that it's colic. It could mean that the Chalicothere is trying to get an itch off its back, trying to get a dust bath, or just doing it for the heck of it. But the one way you can tell how this is a symptom of colic is that if they're constantly getting up and down, and rolling around, and after they are done rolling and get up, they don't shake the dust and dirt off of their bodies because it's too painful to even do that. If they do that, that's definitely a sign that they might be colicking. Another symptom of colic would be laying down more than usual, or simply getting up and laying down and getting up again and laying down again. Now, while laying down itself is definitely not a sign of colic, it'll drive you crazy if that was, it's definitely something to consider how often they lay down. Having the other symptoms would definitely help show that this is the sign of colic. Another symptom of colic would be the constant pawing on the ground. Now, sometimes this could mean the animal is excited or frustrated, but pawing more than usual can definitely be a sign of irritation and stress from the colic. So this could definitely be a sign of colic. Another sign of colic would also be unable to defecate or not really pooping as often, along with all these other symptoms. The lack of poop can indicate that it's an impaction, basically a poop that's pretty much clogged up in the guts, or it's a twisted gut, both of which will definitely need veterinary attention immediately. Now, colics can range from mild to severe, and for the most part, they can be treated and get out of it okay. It can still be very fatal, so definitely keep an eye out for them. Best way to avoid colics is to make certain that amount of grain and pellets is a very small fraction, and also got to make certain that they are not ingesting sand too often. Make certain they are dewormed properly. As for impaction, they will definitely need to be hydrated more often. Make sure water is always available. And with twisted gut, no one knows what causes twisted gut. All they know is that with twisted gut, that would need emergency surgery right away. More details on colic, and especially on treating colic, would actually be described in a future video about treating Moropus colics. Another ailment that Moropus foals could suffer from is neonatal maladjustment syndrome, also known as dummy foal syndrome. It is a condition that affects some newborn foals and even occasionally other ungulates such as rhino calves. Affected animals appear healthy at birth, but they soon show neurological abnormalities such as weakness, incoordination, confusion, lack of a suckle reflex, basically they won't nurse, and seizures. No one knows why this happens or what causes it, but it is said to be related to lack of oxygen during birth or abnormal levels of neurosteroids that keep the animal in a sedated state in the womb. There are some treatments that could be done. One such treatment is called the Madigan Squeeze Technique, or MST, which involves wrapping ropes around the animal's chest and applying pressure for 20 minutes. This mimics the pressure of the birth canal and may trigger the transition from the sedated state to wakefulness. Other treatments will include to provide supportive care, such as assisting the animal to stand and nurse, administering IV fluids and plasma, and controlling the seizures. Any further treatment options and diagnostics should be done with a consultant from a veterinarian. There are other diseases that are not limited to these that Chalicothere foals could definitely suffer from, Moropus or otherwise. One is laminitis, which is a painful inflammation in the tissues connecting between the bone and the hoof. Now, while Chalicotheres have more claws than hooves, their claws are technically hoof enough so that it might still count. Laminitis is often caused by overfeeding, trauma, infection, and metabolic disorders. It can lead to permanent damage and lameness, and eventually the animal has to be put down. It can be prevented by avoiding sudden changes in their diet, providing adequate exercise, and trimming the hooves regularly. Treatment may include anti-inflammatory drugs, hoof support, and corrective shoeing. Or, could shoe Chalicothere foal in a sense that is. One way that the hooves or claws can be able to be trimmed regularly is providing a scratching post for the Chalicotheres. Another illness that, not exactly from the foal itself, but from the mare, the surrogate mare, that could affect the foal is mastitis. This is basically an inflammation in the mammary glands that causes swelling, redness, and discharge. This can be caused by bacterial infection, trauma, or poor hygiene. And this could affect the quality of the milk and probably even make the foal not be able to get milk at all. This could be prevented by simply making sure that the udder is clean, dry, and free of injuries. Treatments for this may include antibiotics, anti-inflammatory drugs, or drainage. These are only just a few of the diseases that you'll have to watch out for Moropus. Other diseases that Moropus could suffer from, I'm not sure I could be able to cover them all. There are two other diseases that I think would definitely be a great concern for the Moropus foals, as well as any other animal for that matter. One is rabies, which is a viral infection that affects the brain and the nervous system. It can cause depression, paralysis, and death. This could be ultimately passed on from a bite from an infected bat, or a fox, or a skunk. Rabies can be prevented by simply vaccinating the animal, and also limiting contact with most of the wild animals, though this could be impossible, which is why vaccinations would be needed. Most likely, vaccines for horses could be able to help the Moropus, but research on this would need to be done. And if they were bitten, if they were bitten and they did not get vaccinations, they will need a whole stroke of treatments, such as simply getting a series of rabies vaccinations and immunoglobulin injections as well. But this must be done before symptoms occur. So, and when the symptoms first pop up, there's basically nothing you can do. Another illness. That's a very fatal illness that not only that every animal will suffer from, but I definitely have a suspicion that these resurrected Moropus Foals will definitely suffer from, is cancer, which is basically a disease caused by abnormal skin growth, causing tumors, organ failure, and obviously death. It can be caused by genetic mutation, which could be possible considering how Moropus are resurrected, environmental factors, viruses, or even chronic inflation. I mean, there are many ways to be able to prevent it, such as preventing or avoiding carcinogens, which is caused by tobacco, radiation, and chemicals, and maintaining a healthy diet and lifestyle, which is obviously essential for taking care of any animal. But if it does happen, there's basically like surgery, chemotherapy, radiation therapy, immunotherapy, or targeted therapy, depending on the type and stage of the cancer. It varies from cancer to cancer, and this is definitely something that will need to be done for any animal, whether it's a Moropus or any other species. As with taking care of any sort of infant of a species, whether it's a resurrected species or a living species, taking care of Moropus foals would definitely present challenges. However, these are challenges that must be taken in order to provide a healthy, happy environment for these animals as they come back to existence in our world. Thank you ever so kindly for watching this video if you made it this far. Chalicotheres are amongst one of my most favorite extinct animal groups that we found in the fossil record, especially ever since I first learned about them from the Walking with Beasts series. The Moropus in particular is amongst my favorite Chalicothere, especially ever since I saw this illustration of them in a book I saw in the library when I was a child. And you definitely know that since I do love Chalicotheres, especially the Moropus, definitely know that I will have more videos related to either the Moropus as a species or other species of Chalicotheres in the future. A special thanks to Keenan Taylor for his illustrative skills, was able to bring my concepts to life. So I thank you for that, Keenan. I also want to say thanks to Art by JRC for him giving me permission to use his illustration of the Chalicothere family. Seriously, check his stuff out in DeviantArt on extinct animals. Definitely give him all the support he deserves. I also want to thank my research consultant or researcher, George, YouTube's official cassowary. He was able to help me be able to get research information for my videos. I couldn't be able to get as far as I can without his help in the last couple of videos. So thank you, George. Also, thanks to my patrons on Patreon. These projects are not cheap, and every little bit helps. If you want to be able to help me with my project and support me, go check out my Patreon page and become a member. Also, thank you to my lovely subscribers on YouTube. Your support and your love for my videos and from the project itself has encouraged me to go forth and continue expanding on this idea. So I thank you all for that. For the next video in the future, it's going to be something a little different. For later this month, I will present to you guys 2 different video ideas that I have for the next year. But I do not know which one I should go on first. So once I present them to you, I will present a poll, and then you guys get to choose which one would you want to see as the first video of the new year. I'll give you a little hint. It involves elephants. I hope you guys have a great day. Adios.